Never missed one.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew? Here. Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Moraro?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Do I have a motion to excuse Mr. Pop?
I'll make a motion to excuse Mr. Pop.
I'll support. Sorry.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any questions on the approval of the agenda? If not, I need a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Mr. Pop? Sorry. Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to the approval of the minutes of regular meeting of December 2nd, 2019. Any questions on the minutes? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 2nd, 2019.
Support.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Move on to the approval of manifest 2019-25. Brett, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Jeff?
No questions.
Lee?
Yeah, I got a couple here. On the last page, under professional services, Dixon Engineering, water tank inspection, to TV Hill and Briar Hill, did we come out okay on that, Ray? Did they find anything bad?
They didn't find anything out of order.
And that's just a normal going rate there with the
Yeah,
prices there?
that's-
Okay.
yeah.
That's good to hear. I see now that we had used it before, Luff's Advertiser. Does that mean they're a qualified
We can use,
paper like the Daily News now?
we can use them for advertising. We can't use them for notices for like public hearings.
Oh,
There's certain types of notices that we still
Okay,
must go
but
to.
they are dollar-wise, Mary, do we know the difference? I know they're less expensive than the Daily News, but...
Yeah, I know their ads are. The two, are you looking on the first page there?
Yeah,
That those items there, they do the mailing and the printing of our assessment change notices for the
Oh.
assessor, and they do the mailing and the printing of our tax bills.
oh, okay. Okay, I think that's all I had. Yeah, oh, one other question here. Page 2, under Public Works, about halfway down, number 2, ULSD died, what, it's only $372, but it doesn't ring a bell. ULSD died, D-Y-E-D.
I'll check into it.
Yeah, could you, okay, that's all I have.
I only have one on page 4 of 7, under electric utility fund. The fourth one down, Michigan Municipal League, refund overpayment on insurance claim. What was that?
Then, that was on an insurance claim, and they paid us too much. They read the bill wrong, and they sent us too much money for a claim, and we had to refund the money.
Okay, so that was in,
It was for lightning damage, I forget which one it was, I'd have to pull it.
That's okay.
But they read the bill wrong, the insurance company, and they paid us too much.
okay, so you had to
So they
refund it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Do I have a motion on the manifest?
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest number 2019-25 in the amount of $445,733.17.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and then, also, before I move on, I'll have Ray answer any questions we had on the manifest from the last meeting.
Yeah, we had, there were two questions that came up at the last meeting I pulled and researched. The main question was the compound water meter for the football field. Well, that was Core and Main out of the water department. It was $934.87. That was for the water meter for the irrigation system. They installed a new irrigation system for the football field. The old meter, which was 20-plus years old, it wasn't compatible, so we put a new meter, and that is our expense. Those meters are ours. So that was that one. And then I gave you a series of reports for the DTE bills, and also I gave you some temperature charts that I had. One of the things I'm going to do this winter is I'm going to try and put something together that would be easier to overlay, maybe in a graph format, where I can take, it's in Excel, so I could take that,
Sure.
and then you can overlay the temperature graph with the heat.
Sure.
And we can kind of see, well, we definitely can see improvements. Hopefully, we see improvements based on what we've done over
Right.
those years. So it's just a kind of a proof study, what we're doing.
Thank you, Ray.
Okay, you want?
Anyone wishing to address the council on any agenda item shall do so now at the podium. We have none. We have no public hearing. Appointments and presentations. Downtown Development Authority.
Okay, this is the meeting that we go through all of our boards and committees, and we appoint, either reappoint our current members that are up for reappointment, or new members if there's an open seat. This year, we have a series of reappointments. We do have one new applicant for Parks and Rec. But like for the Downtown Development Authority, we have Mark Edling, who is putting in for a reappointment, and we do have an open seat. Bruce Hawkinson is not reapplying, so we will have an open seat in the DDA. There was, normally, if you needed some kind of an interest to be, financial interest to be a member of the DDA board, and when I say that, you either live in the district or have a business in the district. There is some lightening or softening of that anybody can sit on the DDA, but we have to have a minimum number of these, of having a business or living in the district. So just wanted to get that out there in case anybody's interested. So we do still have that open seat.
Well, it looks to me like we have that covered with owners.
Yeah, most of the members have a building owner. It's not a business owner. I mean, you can be an employee of a business and sit on the
Okay.
DDA because you have an interest in the DDA district. And the DDA district is not just the Main Street. I mean, it's US 2, it's the industrial area. Norway Springs subdivision is in the DDA district. So it's a large area that's not just the downtown.
And it would be nice if we got another one, because sometimes people don't make it, and then we don't have enough to have a meeting.
Exactly. Now, with an open seat, Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, but a quorum is based on the sitting members, not on the number of board members. If there's an open seat, that's not considered as part of the quorum.
Correct.
Okay.
What's the date of this meeting? What are the dates of this meetings? During what day, what day of the week?
They're the third Wednesday of every month at noon.
Okay.
Because we might be changing that, though.
Yes, we might be changing that. We
Till
have a meeting
Tuesday.
Wednesday this week, and we were discussing possibly changing that to a Tuesday.
Okay.
And actually, any citizen can show up anytime they want.
Absolutely, it's open meeting.
It's open
Show up.
meetings.
Is it here?
here at the City Hall Conference Room B, which is downstairs.
Noon on, and we're thinking of moving it to Tuesdays?
Yeah, this month in December, it's this Wednesday, so it's the third Wednesday noon. And then we're thinking of moving it to, noon is normally the time, because, like I said, majority of the members are business owners or business have
they come on their
relations, so they
lunch
come
hour.
on their lunch hour.
Sure.
And the only problem with Wednesdays is I work on Wednesday and I have a hard time getting away and I'm supposed to be at every meeting, so we're gonna see if they can change it.
I'm all for it. I will put my name up if it's gonna move to Tuesdays, if it's gonna be on Wednesdays. I
You
will.
can make Tuesday, though?
I can make Tuesdays, yes. I can make Wednesdays right now, too, for the next couple, I'm sure.
But I think we need to move it to Tuesday, because,
Yeah, I
like I
agree.
said, because,
If it goes to Tuesdays, I'll serve if you guys want me to.
yeah, that would be
That would be good.
fantastic. Do you want to make that appointment tonight, or do you want to wait until after you see if we'll move the meeting?
It's up to you guys.
Yeah, you might go to the meeting and decide you don't want anything to do with it.
Okay, we'll go to the meeting.
I suggest to make the appointment.
I think you should make the appointment tonight.
Okay. That's fine.
So, do I have a motion on Mark Ebling and Jeff Mararo?
I will make a motion that Mark Ebeling be reappointed and Mr. Moraro appointed to the DDA board
Do you want them
to receive a
separately?
four-year term expiring in December 2023.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Okay, for Parks and Rec, you want me just to go through?
Yeah, we got it, but just from now on out, do them separately.
You want to do them separately?
Yeah,
Fine.
really should. I know it takes longer, but
Okay, do you want to, are you okay with DDA that way, or do you want to do separate?
I don't think it's a procedural issue. I think it's okay for the motion, I'll just, if somebody wanted to vote, if one person there was one person who would fail, you can go to the group and there might be votes against it just because of one person. So I think it'd be,
Okay.
I mean, not knowing, I mean, I don't know if it'll be unanimous on each of them or not, or if there's any issues. I really don't anticipate it.
Do you want me just to go through each one? Just go right down the list?
yeah, and then we'll just have a nomination and a motion.
Okay, so the
And
next,
Trish, if you want, I can just say all in favor, if you don't want to make it quicker. Is that all right, or no?
well, we don't have to do roll call. I mean, we've heard that from Mr. Hawkinson when he's come to the meetings.
Right.
We're one of the few that actually does roll call vote for everything.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you wanted to just do a voice vote.
We'll do it that way, just for this.
Roll
Just-
roll call or voice vote?
I'll voice it, I'll say all
Okay.
in favor, aye.
All right, so for the Parks and Recreation Committee, we have two reappointments, Terry Spence and Darrell Harder. We have a new, Mr. Tinty, Joe Tinty from the school has agreed to be the school's ex officio member, or representing the school. And then a new member, Lisa Weiss, is put in for the Parks and Rec board. So those are the three seats that are available at this point.
Do I have a motion on Joel Tinty?
Make a motion that Joe Tinty be appointed.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to Terry Spence. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that Terry Spence be reappointed.
Second?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Darrell Harder?
Make a motion.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Excuse me, was that Morrow and Kramer? Mararo and Kramer?
For support.
I got Jeff and...
Jeff support.
Oh, Jeff supported it?
Yeah.
Oh, who made the motion, the Kramer?
Lee.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I
glad I
got.
asked. Lee? Got it.
Lisa Wise?
I make a motion.
Support.
Motion made by Brett, supported by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, for the,
Don't we need a council member on there? Because I was the last one.
yes, we typically have a council member that sits, goes to the meetings, not necessarily has to be a voting member, but takes that committee as, sometimes ex officio. We can do, like for the Parks and Rec, I mean, usually I had a voting seat.
Well, I've been there the last 2 years.
Would you like it?
Want to go back?
Yeah, I'll take it again.
Would somebody make a motion then, please?
I motion that Mr. Leonardini be accepted as the council member representing the Parks and Rec Board.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, the next board is the Jake Mangini Museum. There are 3 seats for open for reappointment. Mr. Bill Trombley, Mr. Doug Lindsley, and Mike Shallow has put in for reappointment for 3-year terms.
Do I have a motion on William Trombley?
Make a motion, we approve William Trombley.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Doug Lindsley?
I'll make a motion. Doug Lindsley be reappointed.
Support.
Motion made by Brett, seconded by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mike Shallow?
I nominate Mike.
Support.
Motion made by Jeff, supported by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And the Board of Tax Review is a 1-year term. It needs to be, members need to reapply each and every year. We have 3 that are requesting reappointment. Mr. Ron Vivio, Mr. Darrell Harder, and Mr. George Servia. They've served for quite a few years on this board and are requesting reappointment.
Do I have a motion on Ron Vivio?
I'll make a motion on Ron Vivio, reappointed.
Do I have a support?
Support.
Motion made by Jeff. No, motion made by Brett, supported by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to Darrell Harder.
Motion that we have Daryl come back on the tax review.
Support.
Motion made by Jeff, supported by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to George Servia.
Motion George be approved.
Support.
Motion by Brett, motion by Jeff, seconded by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You oppose that one?
I'm opposing.
Okay, roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Drew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
That's for approval.
Nay, then, but just on the one, yeah, nay.
Mr. Marraro?
Yes.
Okay, there's 2 more boards. I'm going to talk about these together. That's the Norway Area Planning Commission and the Norway Area Zoning Board of Appeals. The reason I'm talking about these together is that they are sort of married in the sense that in the legislation, both the city and township ordinance creating the commission and on the zoning, the Norway Area Zoning Code, which spells out the ZBA. The way that we're set up, because we're a joint 2-municipality board, is that we established alternating, what we call an alternating position. So every 2 years, that alternating seat will go to one of the municipalities. So like for the Planning Commission, it's a 9-member board. There's 4 voted from each municipality, and then the alternating seat will go back and forth every 2 years to the city and the township for majority on the board. And then when the planning commission, like say, when the city has the alternating seat in the planning commission, then the township would have the alternating seat in the zoning board of appeals. So for 2020 and 2021, the city now has the alternating seat, and we had the alternating seat in 18 and 19 on the ZBA. So for the planning commission, we have one regular seat, Mary Skog, who is requesting reappointment, and then we have the alternating seat, which is currently open. In the past, what we've done with that is city council representative has taken that seat because it fits well with our terms, legislative terms. Our council elections are every 2 years, and so it does fit well with that for 2-year terms. So I'm hoping that maybe a council member will be willing to take that alternating 2-year term. We did not get any additional applications in for either of these boards.
Anybody interested?
When's it meet?
This board meets on the first Wednesday at 6:30 PM.
Wednesdays are bad.
Brett?
Yeah, Scott's not here.
Yeah.
Can we nominate Scott?
We don't,
Why didn't you show up for this one?
you don't have to make an appointment tonight if you want to wait till Mr. Pop is available.
I'd like to wait till he's available.
Okay. And then the other thing is that if, again, we can have maybe we should have a conversation over the next couple of weeks, that if, of course, I would have to, we'd go to the next meeting, which would, our next meeting for the planning commission would be January, what is that, 8th? Is that the?
Yeah.
January 8th. I mean, you could always, they have to decide whether, they're for their annual calendar, so we can make a request again, we could change the night of the meeting. One thing about Wednesdays, especially in the winter, is that it doesn't conflict with the school calendar, and then a lot of times we, games and different things.
But it conflicts with my golf calendar in the summer, so that's the problem.
So they're sports. So we can go that route, but let's have further conversations then over the next couple
Yeah,
weeks.
it's fine. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it if it was, if the schedule permitted.
Okay.
Change.
I probably shouldn't say this, but I've been on that commission 2 different times, and of all the boards, that's the hardest one to be on, as far as doing the work. Don't want to scare anybody off.
Okay, so
I work it.
we'll leave that one there, and then,
I'll make a motion that Mary Skog be reappointed for a 3-year term.
Support.
motion made by Brett, supported by Jeff, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So the ZBA, we do not have an appointment to make tonight. We do have an open seat, which is an alternate seat. The Planning Commission does not have provision for alternate members. The ZBA does have very specific language about trying to have alternate members, because that is a board that meets whenever it's needed. Last year, we probably, how many times do you think we met, Trish? Maybe 6 times, 5 times?
I think it was 6.
About 6
5 or
times.
6, yeah.
So it's as needed, based on a request from a resident for variation, or request from the zoning administrator for some kind of a judicial review, whether it's a code issue or some kind of it's a judicial board. It's one that looks at the code, whether it's the property maintenance code or the zoning code, and evaluates from a judicial standpoint. So we have 2 members currently. They're not up this year, but we do have that open alternate seat.
That's just to fill in if they're not there.
Correct.
So it's a 2-member appeals board?
No, it's it's a 5-member appeals board. We have 2 seats and the township has 3
Oh,
this
okay.
coming year.
I'll be the alternate. So I've been there the last 2 years, as designated appointee.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, Lee. So do I have a motion on,
Yeah, I move to have Lee fill as the alternate for the zoning board of appeals.
Support.
motion made by Jeff, seconded by Brett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much. This is always the toughest, I think probably one of the tougher things to get through because it's just so much that we're trying to do, so appreciate it.
What about, I can go on with the meeting, and I don't know if you want to do it later, but what about all the other, meetings?
Well, we can address that now in your in the memo over the weekend. I did put in place that it's preferred to have some council member representation on a number of other boards that we have, and there's a couple of open seats, if you notice. There's nothing as formal as what we just went through, but we do need to find a representative. The Access Management Committee is one of them, and I'm going off the top of my head now until I find my list.
Do we have to
There it
be
is.
reappointed, like for the ambulance and that, because I know I represent the city on the ambulance?
There's nothing in the provisions that say we need to do reappointments until you choose not to be on
Okay,
it.
all right, I'll stay on there.
So I gave you the list in the memo. So right now, I'll just read down through them so everybody realize it. So Parks and Rec, Leah, you're a member on that board. DDA, Candy is on, serves as mayor. We just filled the Planning Commission and the ZBA. Oh, we don't have the Planning Commission.
No, we don't have
That's what
the
I missed
planning
on.
commission,
No.
just the ZB.
But we'll,
I took the
Yeah,
the DDA spot.
okay. So with that one still, we need to discuss. Mr. McGee's on the museum, Mr. Pop's on the electric utility board, Ms. Brews on the North Alert, Board of Tax Review is Jim Wiseman, myself for the Brownfield Authority, myself for the Solid Waste Management Authority. The Access Management Committee is open, and Mr. Kramer serves on the Construction Code. I'm the alternate on that particular board. And then I also represent for the Central Landfill Authority and the UPPPA. So we really have the Access Management Committee is one. And that one, I didn't get any confirmation on the exact date for the meeting. So maybe what
We'll come back to that one.
maybe
then.
what we should do, let me confirm when the meeting date is for that, and then we can come back. So then we'll have the Planning Commission and the Access Management.
Okay. Oh, let's see. We'll move on to approval, stormwater assessment management, wastewater draft report, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Scott Nowak from Coleman Engineering is here to provide us with the final draft report. Make sure you talk into the microphone because I have to.
Don't chase me down.
Okay.
So I am here to talk about the Sovereign project. A little bit of history on that, for those that don't know. Back in 2013, and even a little before that, at the federal level, the EPA started talking about asset management of both water systems and sewer systems. Michigan took that and ran with what they call the SAW grant program. It actually stands for Stormwater Asset Management Wastewater. They gave out grants for this. They were really attractive grants for everyone. Basically, every community in the state that had a sewer system applied for one. It was 90% grant money. The city was lucky enough to receive one in late 2013, early 14. Actually got the go-ahead. It's an 8-year process from the state. Got the go-ahead 3 years ago to start. It wraps up and finalizes at the end of this month, actually.
So what is SAW? In this case, it's asset management. It's both the sanitary sewer system and your storm sewer system. Not gonna lie, storm sewer will take a second fiddle in the presentation. If you got any questions about that, feel free to ask. I have a little presentation here. I have Derek Cowell with me, Home Engineering. He's gonna be running the presentation for us here. But to give you a little bit about this, asset management is really driven by the EPA. They have a method, you can use other methods, but you're trying to rank your ownership of materials, your ownership of items, assets, whatever that might be. An asset can be almost anything. As far as asset management, there's 5 real things you have to do. You have to inventory your assets. You have to define what you expect of your assets. That's the level of service. You define how critical they are. Obviously, a sewer pipe that services one home is different than your sewer plant. You define the cost of that item, how much does it cost to maintain, how long is it going to last, and then you come up with a funding strategy to replace those items. Everything wears out, right? To actually put a metric on that, they say it's risk. The risk scale that the DEQ and the EPA push is 1 to 25 scale, and you won't see a ton of this. I know Ray gave you some of the report, maybe 60 pages. The report's actually 330. So there's a bunch of stuff in there. There's a lot of data backing this up. In the end, it all goes into a bunch of spreadsheets and gets sorted. But risk really drives this. So what risk says, it's got 2 bases in risk. The importance, the criticality of the asset, and the condition of the asset. The wore out is brand new. The higher the criticality rating, the more important it is. Business risk of the item. So when we started looking at everything, inventory. We went out, and this was the time consuming thing. The reason it took me 3 years to stand in front of you. Check out all your pipe, all your manholes, the sanitary sewer system, the plant, test it, televising everything that's involved with that. Evaluate the assets. That took some time, especially the wastewater treatment plant project just finishing up. Actually, really complicated that. We didn't want to even start down there until the project. So we went out, we defined all your assets. There's actually some giant spreadsheets, GIS is involved. We'll get into that towards the end. Once we had those all, we put a condition rating on that. So there's a little example condition here. A brand new asset, I'm going to say the new stuff at your wastewater treatment plant, and things, all of the pipe that was put in the ground, the debacle here, that's all brand new in our eyes today. That gets a 1 rating of condition. Anything that's in really truly poor shape, and we'll see some examples in here, usually gets a 4 or a 5, either significantly deteriorated or unserviceable. So we went through, rated everything. There's actually about 4,000 different defined assets in the plant, if I remember correctly, something like that. Define those conditions, and then define your criticality to your system. Most anything at the wastewater treatment plant is going to get a real high criticality rating. You can't live without it. You have to have it, the pipe going into the wastewater treatment plant. What all of this gives us is some kind of metric to rate everything you own. In doing that, we'll talk a little bit about just some facts and figures. Your wastewater system in general, 147,000 feet of collection pipe in town. And that doesn't include the private service leads, that's just the main. About 55% of that's been replaced in recent history, which is a great thing. It's a really good number, honestly. And then 11,000 feet of force mains for your pump stations. That's all been replaced or new since 1978, which is also, that was pretty amazing. I'm quite impressed with that. Opened up all your manholes. Look at those. You have 646 sanitary sewer manholes, and found 75 of them that need some form of repair. And there's some stuff, some information in there about how new they are. During these inspections, since we got the lot of the information about your collection system, We opened almost every manhole. There are a handful we didn't open for safety reasons in West Loop. Some of them we never did find. There are some others never were buried, don't know where they are. But inspected materials, the depth of the manhole, actually took some pictures. I'll show you some stuff in our GIS system in a minute here. We did some smoke testing to reevaluate your collection system as well. Came up with 203 different issues we found in smoke testing. And what that is, we pump an actual aerosol, air slide smoke in, and I gotta remember this, running around town. Found a fair number of issues. Really the point I wanted to make on this slide was, didn't find a lot of problems. I was very impressed. This is the best of all the saw grants that I've worked on. Far and away the best. And then the fun part, televising. Really, this was about a year ago we got into the televising portion of this, and I will say your system is really good shape. We've done a lot of work in the last 30 years on it. Found a lot of problems on the televising. You know, when I say that, it's the older stuff. Got a couple of interesting photos for sure. This is 3rd Avenue, as it says there. That pipe's about to fail, pretty close to it. But during televising, you can see we televised 91,000 feet of pipe, so a good portion of your system. That doesn't include everything that was done by Baco when they put their pipe in, so obviously that's fairly new as well. So with that, you have about 80% of your system televised now, mainly excluding the Vulcan area. So, but yeah, I had a couple of fun finds to show you. This is just some of the average stuff we were finding in a lot of the older pipe. There's quite a bit of this out there. Holes in the pipes, disjointed pipes over on the right. Actually, the next slide's not my favorite. A hole in a brand new PVC pipe. That was actually more common than you'd like to think, is small problems with your PVC. That's actually Summit Road, which was very surprising. That's a relatively new piece of pipe there. And something I've never seen before in a wastewater system is a wood pipe. I've seen a lot of wooden water main. I've seen it pull out of the ground in Norway, actually. I've never seen a wooden sanitary sewer in my life. And I bet you we've seen 500,000 feet of televising in Norway, Coleman Engineering. It's actually in really good shape. I wouldn't do anything with it. I was quite surprised by this. This is a relatively small piece, just a couple of segments of it. Lift stations, we reviewed all your lift stations. You have 7, a lot, honestly. Most of them in good working order, and nothing really to report on those. And we'll get into lift station 5 in a little bit. That is the only outlier in your lift station system that I would recommend doing something with. Mr. Trabessi does not like number 5. I can see why. It's problematic for him. And there's some better things that can be done in that area as far as servicing the Holy Spirit School, maybe getting rid of that lift station, putting a little better station, a little bit more efficient station.
It's one of the newer stations.
With that, yes it is. What that doesn't address though is a lot of the upgrades you've had. So that's the year the station was really installed in 1978 there, on almost every one of them, right? They've been refurbished quite a bit since then. And honestly, number 8 is, I don't want to call it poorly designed, but it's not the nicest lift station I've ever seen. They've included that. Sewer plant. We actually hired a company, McMahon, engineers and architects out of Lee, Wisconsin. Coleman Engineering does not necessarily design treatment plants or biological process. McMahon Associates and a gentleman named Don Wolf, vice president there, actually came up for all meetings, reviewed the plant. McMahon actually originally designed the plant back in 70 years ago, or whatever it was. So it's kind of interesting. They had a lot of background history of it. But he went through, looked at all the assets on the treatment plant, worked with Bob on a lot of recommendations down there. And you'll see in some of the stuff that Ray provided a good number of recommendations, I thought. A couple of some safety recommendations, some energy saving recommendations on the plan.
As compared with our other lift stations.
So, all of this, big data collection, has to satisfy some kind of desire for the city, right? In the DEQ's eyes, they call this level of service. What's your goal, right? I think this is pretty common. Ray has some hand in these statements here, but review your rates and increase on an annual basis to follow inflation. Avoid steady declines in revenue, right? To put that another way, keep your rates as low as you can handle it while maintaining a sanitary sewer system in good working order, right? I mean, that's everybody's goal. The other big thing to take away out of this is identify areas of high inflow and infiltration. It's something we really tried to do through SAW here. Where you get extraneous flows in there, it's causing problems for you down at the plant. That's an ongoing recommendation or goal of this plan, honestly, and it's something we want to touch on here. That was one of our goals starting into this, was to find a big source of water getting into your wastewater system. We didn't really find that. We did find a couple of combined sewer catch basins, street inlets that pour in there yet. There's certainly a problem. We made some recommendations to get those off the system, but we did not come up with any major sources, no culverts going into a creek or anything like that. And that's always everybody's hope. But I think that statement there, it really needs to hammer home that the city does need to continue doing wastewater projects, especially pipe replacement. Not necessarily in the near term, but in the long term, the city needs to keep up with the projects they've been doing. And you guys have been doing a really good job of continuing to upkeep the system and replace when necessary, when you can afford it. But it definitely does need to keep going.
Where do we stand with the grant money then?
So we're almost complete with the project. We have till the end of the month, and it looks like we're in good shape as far as finishing up.
So we're talking like this, you're talking about another phase of this down the line, is what we have to be looking at?
No, when I talk about that, not study, we have, and you'll see there's some capital improvement recommendations in here. That future is solely based on pipe replacement, implementation of the capital improvements we talked about.
That'll have to be done during our regular budget appropriations, and then, there's
So
a few.
the grant money's done for this now, basically?
It's for the evaluation of it. For the actual implementation you have to go into other programs.
Okay.
I mean, we still have a little bit to do here. You got to finish your report, do it a final, in case there was any comments that came out of this. And then we still have some computer equipment that is going to be purchased, and that's about it.
But your assessment is that our sewer plant is in pretty good shape compared to others that you've seen?
Your sewer system, it's in pretty good shape. That's probably as strong as I give it to you. Overall, I found more problems in the old pipe than I expected. I guess maybe I'd say it that way. Those pictures are a snapshot of the things we found. I mean, we found a lot of items out there. Broken pipes, disjointed pipes, just cracks, things that are going to fail. And it's going to need attention over time here. On the same token, offhand, I mean, it's $15 million or something to replace the rest of your pipe. That's not something you're going to do tomorrow, right? It's just not.
You got that right.
Yeah. My point, and that'll be one of my main points, you got to continue to pick at it, right? There's a slide on funding here in a minute. I'll kind of touch on that and some of the problems with capital improvements. So we took all this information and back to this business risk calculation, right? Everything got a probability of failure or condition. Everything got a criticality. We ranked all of these projects, all of these pipes, pumps, whatever they might be, into this business risk, and came up with a matrix of how many items you have in high risk, low risk, medium risk. Fairly typical, I guess. There's the summary of business risk slide. Really what I look at when I compare systems to systems is that high risk category. Everybody's gonna have medium risk. I was surprised you guys are fairly low on high risk assets. I mean, less than 1%. This is based on the value of your assets, is the other thing I gotta point out. That speaks very well. On the same token, compared to other communities, the medium risk assets are a little higher than some other places. So you do have some, what would be a medium risk item, older but good serviceable, usable infrastructure that needs attention. You know, but the high risk thing, that's the thing you gotta really look at right now, and that was a pretty fair sheet. Some fun facts, the life cycle cost analysis side of this. This kind of summarizes everything of the business risk path. Well, you can see on here, everything's broken down by item. Big point with this does not include on the street work side, does not include the street. So, you could not replace your entire sewer system for $36 million. You'd have to buy all the streets in town. Can't be done. But just the sanitary sewer system's worth $36 million. Rough number. We take that, we average the life expectancy of everything in town, weighted on dollars. You get an average life expectancy in that system of 65 years. Your system in general is pretty good shape for that. You know, overall your system is less than 65 years old if you waited it all. But if you just take that 65-year life expectancy and divide $36 million by 65 years, that's $554,000 a year you should spend on replacing things in your system.
Including a roadway?
Does not include the roadway.
All right, so that's a whole different animal.
Whole different thing. We don't include roads in here, we've gone back and forth with that. It depends on the project, it depends on how you fund it. And sometimes, like, you know, I've done some jobs for the city of Norway where MDOT funds the road. So suddenly that's, you put it in, do you not put it in? It depends on how you fund the project, when you actually get to the project. So from that standpoint, we've always taken it.
So Ray, what's that number really look like? So you're saying $554,000 a year we should bring back into our system, yet we both know that it's impossible to do that when you got asphalt over the top of it.
Yeah, there's actually a large number of problem areas that are in gravel alleys. So, you know, not everything has a piece of pavement over the top. I mean, a good portion does. That's something that I'm going to evaluate as to whether or not we can get into some of those sections,
Yeah.
you know, without having that asphalt cost. But, you know, when you look at that $500,000 per year just in sewer, I mean, you probably are looking at every bit of $250, you know, half of that number for asphalt.
Yeah.
So $250,000, I would say.
Yeah.
Do you think that's fair?
Well, I'm assuming that we're coordinating with as we fix streets, we're coordinating.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure, right?
absolutely. In
Yeah,
fact-
pipe replacement.
In fact, that's something we went through, because one of the comments was, well, you need to go and overlay, because we're gonna have the water asset plan, where we had that plan recently completed, and we're gonna overlay the water asset plan with the sewer asset plan. And the comment I had was, well, and we did that about 10 years ago, and that's how we came up with that last rural development project, because we basically looked at where do we have sewer and water in the same street, so
Yeah.
then we got the full reconstruction.
Yeah.
You know, so we've done a lot of that already. Now, I think Vulcan, there's a, you know, and we don't handle the pavement in Vulcan, so that would be a road commission issue, and they'd have to deal with, you know, the township would have to see how they wanted to do it. But when we get down there, when we are in the street, you know, how do we handle the restoration?
Well, something like Vulcan, I mean, that's another good example of why you don't build street cost in, right? You guys aren't liable for that, it's not your pavement. That's really coordination with the township and the county, right? When they're gonna plan a project, you try to put that on your long-term goals and get that pipe at the time. General statement of Vulcan is, Vulcan's in pretty fair shape. I think if you do have to back up and say that, I mean, it's a lot newer than the remainder of town for a good portion of Vulcan anyway. And a true statement, I mean, over the last 30 years, the pipe replacement that has happened in Norway, most of it's been street work, right? I mean, in concert with projects, you know, obviously the most recent Baca project's the best example, but a lot of the stuff we're finding is off-road, you know, really, or it's alleyways, things like that, that is one of the funnier things you're gonna see in here, and one of the odd results. We did work with Ray on what projects do you choose for a capital improvement plan, right? And make a recommendation. Well, some of these alleys have been forgotten about for so many years because honestly, when you look at it from a business risk standpoint, they service 2 houses, they're never gonna score very high in a business risk. Yet, their condition was so bad that we put them in as a capital improvement project. They do have to happen. And there's a little less skin in the game from the city standpoint to get these alleys taken care of. One of the other things we can look at, it's a capital planning tool, DEQ requires that you do this. Your revenue and expenses. I do have to say, I mean, we went through, we modeled your revenue structure, we modeled your expenses. The word I'm going to use is fragile. I do think you have to continue to look for any savings you can on expenses, every dollar at this point, and rate increases. That was one of the struggles we came up to in this project is when you come up with what I'll call a laundry list of items that need replacing, need work. And when we got there, there's just not a big revenue structure associated with replacing those items. Now,
Excuse me, so you're saying you're projecting we're 180 grand upside down, moving forward each year? Everything's the same?
so that was last year. It's been
Okay.
somewhat corrected. I don't want to speak to your current budget too much. We look at a previous year, right? It is a little bit hard to look at that post-project, things like that. But yeah, you definitely need to do, in my opinion, you need to do a rate increase and continue to look at that budget every year. Some of these capital improvement projects on the next page, and we're struggling to see where we're going to come up with money for that. Whether or not they're required. The DEQ won't require you to do these. They're not. You know, this is a list of things we recommend. We picked some smaller projects. It does total $210,000 in the next 5 years with the capital improvement projects. You know, you're along, it's a decent amount of money. The other side of this is always grant money, whatever that might be. There's always programs spinning around, be that from the DEQ or someone else that fund stuff like this. You always look for those to subsidize this funding, right? But yeah, you see on the next page, we came up with, the DEQ requires 2 different capital improvement plans. A 0 to 5, that's the one they really hit on or like to talk about anyway. It's a project that we recommend as the engineer, the city looks at, agrees with. You have some idea how you're going to fund it. You got an idea that you do want to build that fairly soon for various reasons. A lot of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades in there have to do with just some other things we saw down there. Efficiency of the plant being one of the big ones that went with that. And then the other, well, the next 3 projects on the list, relatively small pipe replacement projects, just a couple feet, you know, a little stretch of pipe here and there. And then US 2, there is a crossing of US 2 that's in very bad shape. That we would recommend in the next 5 years you get to that. However, that's in the end going to get coordinated with MDOT whenever MDOT comes to do a reconstruction project, frankly. They're going to drive that ship for you for road reconstruction reasons. Came up with a long-term list. Long-term capital improvements, the DEQ just wants to see you guys, they're thinking about it. And obviously really should be. We came up with $445,000 worth of replacements. A lot of this stuff, some of it could be potentially handled in-house by the city, their alleyways, things like that. But it's just projects you should have in your mind for the upcoming 15, 20 years here.
You said this is not mandatory by the DEQ?
No. They're going to ask why you're not doing it, honestly. And based on the pipe condition, I mean, if I showed you the video of all of these, you'd want to do them, to be honest with you.
I would love to do them, but you gotta have the money to do them.
That's the million-dollar question, right? You need to be thinking about them.
The DEQ wants to kick a bunch of money to us, we'll be happy to do everything you would recommend.
Well, there's a good point in that. That was the original carrot with SAW in general. If you applied for these grants and did an asset management plan, and then came back to them, they'd give you $500,000. And then in the initial grant round, they used every nickel they had, and the $500,000 went to no one in the whole state of Michigan. That's the kind of thing that needs to happen. But grand scheme of things, when you start looking at these capital improvement projects, in 20 years from now, you finish this list, and you go back at it and find the same list again, right? I mean, the assets continue to degrade, it's gonna be that way. You do have to put that $500,000 a year maintenance in there. Now, you see us, we put out about $1 million in suggestions here. That's over a 20-year period. I'll tell you that that is somewhat of a result of the amount of money you just spent. You guys want to replace a bunch of assets, you're probably a little bit ahead of the curve here. You're no different than any other community needing millions and millions of dollars to replace pipe. The other one I did want to point out on here is lift station number 5. That is services the assisted living along Highway 8 over by the Holy Spirit School. That's been problematic for a number of years. Also, could do a better job if you rebuilt that and did a little pipe project down there. You could service Holy Spirit School through that. Something I've been talking to Ray about for quite some time. The reason that's actually, it's in this presentation, it's not normally printed for you, is that's a little different project. That's kind of an optional thing. It's got a lot of benefits for the city. However, I would look for ulterior funding to that before you just went and spent $250,000 of city money on building that. Maybe that's a grant, maybe that's some kind of a program, whatever it might be. Again, overall, I felt in good shape. We've honestly come to these commission meetings in other communities and put up a lot bigger numbers than $1 million of pipe work that we found. The wastewater treatment plant, it is not a gents money in that issue, and just forget about it. Don Volkmar, I'm going to make that point. He sees a lot of positives that happened out of your recent project. The plant overall is in good shape, but could benefit for some more money thrown at it and continued investment in that. And plants are kind of along that way all the time. They're a shorter life asset. There's pumps, there's mechanical things they always need replacing.
Was Coleman our engineering firm for this last project here?
No.
I'm happy that you weren't.
Last point here, the remaining clay pipe should be considered for replacement. There is still a lot of clay pipe in town, you know, and even above and beyond the recommendations we made, a lot of issues with it. You know, it's always going to be that way. But financially, I see the challenges as a condition you guys face with your sewer system. It's the word fragile with it. I wish you were taking in more money to account for some of these capital improvement projects.
We need more customers is what we need.
Yes. Some more water. But that's a challenge that we, I think, tried to take into account here. Again, the actual asset management plan is actually 336 pages or whatever it might be. There's a lot of information there for anybody that's interested in it. But it is a planning document, it's a living document. That's one of the things I do want to get into the GIS here, but I just want to touch on storm sewer first. This did include your storm sewer system as well. In general, storm sewer systems are way newer. That's a big key to it. Back when the original system was built in Norway, everything went through the sanitary system, it was all combined sewer. Mostly in the 1970s till now, all of the storm sewer infrastructure that the city owns was constructed. So your oldest piece of infrastructure is basically 50 years old. And you'll see that kind of reflected in the numbers on these pages. Your storm sewer system, I mean, it's 42,000 feet of pipe, it's worth $8 million. It's usually funded through road funding. DEQ doesn't get into the funding side of that at all. We did not find anything major with it, but we did find 41 repairs that we would recommend with your storm sewer system. Most of that's kind of catch basin repair stuff. Some manholes and some cracks, things like that, where we had some structural concerns with the manholes. But overall, $77,000. something you can pick at as far as replacement. The other big thing that happened with SAW is we needed a way to track all your assets, to put all this information together, present it back to people like Ray, present it to Bob. You guys have been working with Empower Renovations for a long time. Back in 2013, when this was originally in its inception, we approached Empower about this, and they had some good solutions to how do we track this. When I say that, it's the data. It's the backbone to all of this. So we built a sanitary sewer GIS system. This is currently live to the city of Norway's server down in the basement, right? Yeah. All this information we grabbed, when we get into the manholes, when we get into the pipes, it all becomes repository in here, and it's all available on a cell phone anywhere you want, tablet, computer, as long as you have the ability to log into a username and password, right? So I just want to give you a little idea of what we did when we got out there. Manholes, we had 2 guys in trees, saw them running around town here for nearly a year and a half opening manholes. Everyone they opened, they measured the depth down in the manhole, what it is, where it is, GPS manholes, so they're infinitely accurate. So when you get into this GIS system, you can actually select the manhole by the map, you can come up with a number, whatever you might want to do, look at a certain street. You can look at a PDF of all the information you took. There, got the wrong one. That's actually the photograph of that particular manhole, whatever one you grabbed. So I'm going to say 98% of your manholes, something like that. We actually have a photograph available on here. If you ever need to see what they look like, it's fascinating. And then we have a little drawing that shows you up on the top of which way all the pipes flow in there. There's a PDF that shows all the data about the manhole. We actually do save a raw information as well in there, so we actually took all this information on paper and then transferred it over to the system. So that's the PDF, all information. One of the nicer things with this is it tells me all the inverts of every pipe you have in town. So if you wanted me to go design a sewer pipe for you tomorrow, and the snow's 3 feet deep, I just have to look at your system and I know all the depths, the locations. There is a little bit of survey involved, but mainly for elevation. And then the last thing I want to show is the data entry portion of it. That's actually the report we took in the field. Now, the biggest thing with SAW is it needs to be a living thing. It needs to continue to happen. You need to continue to work on your asset management plan and keep track of when you replace things, right? So what this is available to anybody that gets the credentials for the city. Dr. Bessie has the credentials, Ray has them now. I'm not sure who else we do it through, but this is all the information about a particular manhole, who looked in it last, the depth, the age, your rating on how you feel, the condition of the manhole, all the pipe materials, all that information is in here. So if you go replace a pipe tomorrow, you can just go in here and update this. It takes 10 minutes or so to do that. And the pipes are actually the neater one. So the pipes, especially televising, and this is certainly not talking bad about Bob here, but this is everywhere. Sewer televising is a very problematic thing in the world. Since the 1980s, it's really been common. Everybody went out and got a VHS tape, right? And they come back with these boxes of them. And we started all this, I asked Bob for all this televising, and he gives me this box of VHS tapes. And I get a summer student, we digitize all the VHS tapes, right? And then you go in the tapes, and you're trying to figure out where are they. Well, all your blocks are the same length. And you get into this, in 1986, you had a tape that goes from manhole 1 to manhole 2 to manhole 3. In 1987, they came back and they went from manhole 1 to manhole 2 to manhole 3 with their different pipes. So you can't figure out where all these videos go. So the real solution to that is GIS. We actually have a live link to all the videos we took and all the videos taken from the Baco project. So now you know where all your sewer leads are, every service, at least in the televised areas. You can jump ahead in the video. That's actually the real quick you can do. And that's available to the guys in the field anytime they need it. And that sits on your server here, and it's got a backup copy so that the videos can't be lost and confused with some other segment of pipe ever again. That's what a wooden water pipe looks like.
How many feet is there of it? Ever take a guess on that?
Yeah, why don't you go to the,
I think it's like 56 or something.
if you show them the report, then you should actually see second too.
Well, I saw where they had mentioned it in the report, but I didn't, maybe I missed the footage on it.
7.5. So just the gray.
I would honestly assume that was a water pipe that they repurposed into a sewer pipe at some point, honestly. Like I said, I've never
And
seen.
the third world project, how much,
the
what
sewer
you
pipe
want
before.
So Derek,
Mine, it was much more expensive than clay tile was, so why would you, right?
so Derek, did you get the enviable job to look at all that footage?
Yeah, I looked at it. Good job.
How'd you keep them awake?
It was a challenging time.
This is a monster.
In the manholes, did you find much sand buildup?
No, not a ton.
Okay.
No, the exception to that, the main line down the plant had some. I've seen some pictures that look like there's some buildup in them. You're going to the grit issue. Grit's a funny thing because it's hard to see it. It sits on the bottom, of course, right? And especially you get into like your main 48-inch pipe down to the plant, well, you can never see anything that's sitting in there. And most of the time it doesn't come to the plant, it sits in the pipe because the velocity of the water's too slow. You need a rainstorm and some flows that you don't want, it flushes that out and sends it to the plant. But yeah, I mean, it's there. You do have a couple of combined sewer catch basins that, we do make some recommendations in the report about that. 3 combined sewer catch basins? 3 or 4. Taking those off the system, they're a source of that grit. But in general,
I think that 48 is I think that's, from where we're getting all those rags in the system, I think that's a main issue.
the television company actually spent a great deal of time trying to get that clean. And as part of the televising contract, you actually can pay them by the hour to do extra cleaning, right? And the real reason for that is they need a good video, they gotta get the pipe clean. It's got the extraneous benefit of getting your pipes clean, of course, too, right? I'm trying to remember how many tons we landfilled. It was a lot, and now mind you, there's a lot of organics in there too, but I wanna say it was 3 semi-loads were all to the landfill after this, just from that 100,000 feet of pipe we cleaned.
The 48.
The 48 was the majority of it, honestly.
Yeah.
It was. How much, what percentage or anything, I don't know, but.
Yeah.
How many water customers do we have in town?
Water customers, we're looking
Water
at,
source,
water customers are 2,000, we're over 2, right, 2,200? And sewer is about, we got about, I think we're under 2,000. So we're about 500 less sewer customers, I think. Well, you got the numbers, what are those numbers?
1,572 sewer connections.
1,500, how much, and the water, I think, is,
I'm not sure on water.
water's up at the 2,000, I think, yeah.
It is more.
So you'd be looking, to cover $180,000 deficit, you'd be looking around $100 a customer.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, you know, when people look around, and I'm not gonna name drop, but you know, look at other communities and compare what you pay versus what they pay. When it comes to especially water and sewer, it's so difficult because, you know, you might have, like in our case, we have the same type of facility as some of the larger systems, but we got a fraction of the customers, and so you know, when you're really looking at the cost of doing business with that facility, the costs are relatively the same. So you'd have less people to spread it out, and that's really a difficult task. Now you've seen the other communities. I mean, we're not the highest, but you got a couple of communities that have more trouble than us, and so the costs are higher.
One of the surprises I saw, and it's hard to compare communities. I mean, Even if you had the same number of users, maybe they have something big and industrial or whatever it might be. It's hard to compare apples to apples, but when you look at the actual gallons sold, I mean, that's a big portion of the calculation for you. And I'll be honest, one of the other communities I looked at, and I'm familiar with, they just sell more water. I mean, nearly 300 gallons per month, per house, more than you guys. Why that is, I couldn't tell you. I mean, bigger lawns, different soils, they water their lawn more, I don't know. But it does, and that's not and it's an anecdotal piece of evidence. That does vary from community to community more.
That's kind of an interesting point, though, because, we talk about how many sewer customers we have, but we don't have sewer meters. So the only way that we can adequately address sewer costs is through water meters. And so, if we have a large water customer that leaves, and a portion of that's going to be in the sewer bill, a good portion of it, or, a lot of it does depend on the water consumption side of it. I mean, we have no other way of dealing with it. And nobody else does either, by the way, so it's not.
Your rate structure is extremely similar to anybody else that I've worked with, and that's a pretty good laundry list. I mean, at Coleman Engineering, I believe he's 11th, so we finished 11th and final, actually. I guess we're about the last to get a worth of money out of everybody, just chronologically. But no, I mean, the way you do things here, there's no magical issue that I found with your rate structure or anything like that. The gallons per person, the raise point, your infrastructure as a comparison of the amount of water you sell and the actual number of users is fairly elaborate. That's not anybody's fault. That's just how it is. You need to do what you have to do to treat water and put it back in the stream safely. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, very, very comprehensive report. I think you guys did a great job. Like you said, there's 65 pages in this report, both sides.
Both sides.
Got something on them. And if anybody out there is interested, without printing more copies, you're more than welcome to borrow my copy, any citizen, and I'll let you go through it, and I think it'll be an eye-opener.
We are, I think, part of the requirement is to have it available to the public.
It is required to be available to the public.
Yeah, okay.
We'll have it online.
You can buy an extra copy, keep your hard copy. It's part of it.
Yeah,
We'll have a
yeah.
copy here at City Hall, and we'll put it online. We've, in other cases, we've had it in the library, so we'll just have to see if the library want to have it as in a reference area.
I know in the past few years, we've had major issues with manhole sinking. Now, I don't know if that was a sloppy work or design issue, but that's been a problem almost.
Are you talking on the road projects that we had?
On the road going back years, yeah.
We found those are the wedges.
Almost universally, that's where the problem comes in. I will tell you, I'm almost certain Railroad Avenue has it. Almost certain. I did that job. They make a rubber insert that goes in the bottom of the castings now. What we found over the years, and there's a lot of them we found like that. There's a laundry list of things, like there's a repair section for manholes, but we found fails in there. They're either brick or they're concrete with a steel casting sitting on them, especially when you start talking something out on the highway and the trucks.
Well, they've had a lot of trouble on the highways too, you can see that.
Main Street was been a real challenge.
The truck sinks a little, because the truck hits that, it hammers it, and it just shatters all that stuff. So they make some rubber and some plastic products that I think perform pretty well for that. We've actually incorporated that into our standard spec and pulled it now, put them in all the time. It seems to help, but the other problem with that is you need 30 years to.
Yeah, I found, you had mentioned it, but I found it interesting that about the wooden pipes there and the 646 manholes. That's going to be a trivia question down the road. And one thing here that I really liked, well, it's not good, but I liked it. On page 18, if anybody wants to look it up, paragraph 2, significant wasteful energy or chemical consumption. Significant. Modify controls for headworks ventilation system. I've been harping on that thing for a year and a half now. It's screwed up. It's totally ridiculous, the heat that we have to put into that building?
And you
Not
have to
your
ask
fault.
Scott and Bill from McMahon about that and get the plan.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I just read his recommendations as much as you did, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a design screw-up.
I mean, that would seem, there's some recommendations in the full report about it, air changeouts, things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Exactly what the details of that are, you'd have to ask.
But that is a dirty shame. We just redid that.
No, I don't think you have to do something. His recommendations sound relatively cheap to implement, honestly, to me. But the nuts and bolts of it were, it's changing the arrow 25 times an hour, if I remember his report.
I'm not sure on the
Both
figures,
memory.
yeah.
And code says 6, so you're heating how many more times the volume of that room, right?
Who designed that?
Mean Hunt.
Hunt was engineers on that project.
I have,
Why can't we have one of their representatives show up here one day?
so what I did was, I had Energy Controls, who we've been working with now on City Hall. I had them also take a look at that, and they have some very specific recommendations on scaling that back, so you don't have to, we don't have that many cycles. So they're going to take care of it. We're going to go through it with them.
One last thing I do want to touch on, the GIS server that now sits at City Hall, that was purchased through SAW. Ourselves and Empower Innovations are working to get that after the end of the month. Your parcels will be onto that. Actually, and I do have to tell Ray, just for everybody's knowledge, we have to actually put your true SAW system on there as well. We don't have all the videos on it yet, so. It's just a lot of data we have to go. That'll happen after the first of the year as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll move on to Resolution 2019-24.
If you remember earlier in the year, you know, we were working our way through the MEDC's Redevelopment Ready program. And then, as I explained, at that time, we entered into that program as positioning ourselves for different grant opportunities that will be coming through that organization. And which some do include, in fact, I think they started a new program on infrastructure, is that correct?
Infrastructure resiliency.
Okay, so, you know, we used the heck out of them 10 years ago, replacing a bunch of water and sewer mains, you know, in this whole section of town. And then we kind of had a lull because in 2010, we updated the census and we got kind of sideways on our low mod designation. So we've been kind of struggling since then to get back on that list. I'm hoping that between this program and the new census that's coming up, that we'll be back positioned to be back in their program. But one thing is, in the past, we didn't have to be in this program. In the future, we do. And so we're working through with the MEDC. They're very good, they're very patient, very long-term, so it's not something that's overtaxing. But we are looking at a number of our documents, a number of our, like our master plan effort that's coming up, and getting it revised. Well, one program that they wanted everybody who was in this program to develop was what they call this public participation plan. And really, when you look through, and I've given you a copy of the plan in your packet, it's common sense, but it just details what we're going to do when we try to get the public to participate and how we're going to help get to the people. We can build off of this plan. This isn't obviously a one-size-fits-all in a final, but it's something that satisfies their need for showing that we're moving forward with it. I provided you with a pretty standard resolution supporting the public participation plan that we went through. And one thing I want to note is that originally, when we passed, approved, moving forward, putting this plan together, there was a cost share that we were picking up. The MEDC has picked up 100% of the cost of the plan. So we're appreciative of them reaching out and doing that. So I just wanted to make that point. So we have a resolution 2019-24, and we're seeking council's approval for pass that resolution.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2019-24 redevelopment, ready community resolution to establish a public participation policy.
Support.
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yep.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Do we have to have a motion on the approval of the stormwater assessment?
Yes,
Okay, can we go back to that?
we
then?
didn't do that.
All right, I need a motion on approval.
One question before that, is that supposed to be December 31, 2020, or December 31, 2019?
2019.
Okay, with that change, do I have the approval of the stormwater assessment management wastewater SAW draft report?
Make a motion that the City of Norway Stormwater Assessment Management Wastewater Draft Report be approved. Final report will be submitted to Eagle pursuant to the city's grant agreement by December 31st, 2019.
Support.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Now we'll go back down to number 15, approval of renewable energy credit sales agreement.
Okay, we have a master service agreement it's with the city of Escanaba for our RUC credits. So their interest is to purchase 16,000 RECs at $1.25. So we have an attached agreement for council's approval.
What do we usually get for that?
Let's see.
Well, it's market basis is higher than we've gotten. We haven't gotten over $1.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good price. I don't
That's a
ever
real good
remember
price.
seeing one that high.
All right.
Do they still have a coal-fired plant down there? Is that-
No, but every utility has to have 12.5%
But
of energy.
where are they getting theirs from?
They
They have
buy
their
it.
own system, don't they?
No, they no longer have the coal.
Oh.
But if you can't produce, like, since we produce 85, 90% of our own, we can sell what we don't need above
Right,
12.5%.
right,
Yeah.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the Norway City Council authorizes the city manager to execute the renewable energy credit sale agreement for $20,000.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Move on to the approval of cable modem and bandwidth management service agreement with pricing addendum number 3 and 4. Mr. Anderson?
Okay, a few months ago, Mr. Heigl was in from Astria, and we passed our service agreement with Astria. We also, as part of the agreement, we have the addendums to handle any of the pricing components of it. We had addendums 1 and 2 pass at that time. Now we have the final 2 addendums, 3 and 4, which basically, the number 3 is our VoIP, or Voice over Internet Protocol, shows you the pricing. And then addendum number 4 is some miscellaneous areas that we have that concern costs that have come up over the term of their agreement. We have a couple customers that need point-to-point, and for us to do that solely, we would have to go out and get contracts, and it's something that Astria was able to handle. So what we've done is we've partnered with them so that our customers can get that point-to-point network that they need. Looking for council's approval of addendums 3 and 4.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that Astria Master Service Agreement Amendment Addendum number 3 and addendum number 4 be approved.
What's the bandwidth we're talking about? Steve, how much, are you increasing bandwidth? We need to increase bandwidth?
No, we've got that burstable bandwidth right now. We're in pretty good shape with the bandwidth. When we scaled back a little bit on the TV side, opened up some additional bandwidth.
Okay. Sorry, but
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Move on to approval, Sturgeon Falls Hydroelectric Unit Number 4, change order number 2, spool shaft replacement. Just want to mention that even though it's called a change order, this is something that was found when it was opened up. Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, I want to make, that's a good point, Madam Mayor. When we started this project, it's a pretty typical maintenance type project, even though there's a replacement involved. When you dive into maintenance work, you find other issues because you just don't know what's in there until you have to open it up to find it. And so I think we're at the very end of that exploratory issue, but we do have our spool shaft that needs to be replaced. And so what we've done is we've taken the original contract and then we've added those change orders onto it. This particular change order will be for $22,732. That would leave the final for the project at $176,062.
Is there any questions? If not, I need a motion.
Well, I just hope we don't find any more issues down there. I'll make a motion that change order number 2 be approved for a price not to exceed $22,732, bringing the total price for the project to $176,062.
support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yeah.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to approval 2020 council meeting schedule. I see we only have, one conflict?
Yep, what do you want to do with Labor Day? That's our one conflict we're going to have every year. Sometimes we have more, but in this particular case, in the past, we've evaluated, if September has 5 Mondays, then we've moved it to the first and the third meetings to the second and fourth week. September only has 4 weeks, 4 Mondays. August has 5 Mondays. We've, in the past, have moved that date, that meeting back to the last Monday in August, but you could just have it on Tuesday, September 8th as well. It's totally up to council.
Brett, what's easier for you with the fair and stuff?
I would prefer to go to August 31st, Monday, August 31st.
It's up to you
That's
guys.
just
I
my
would too.
preference.
And I would prefer September 8th.
I mean, it's, either one will work.
It's up to you.
Yeah,
Just a preference.
personal preference,
Yep.
that's all.
Yeah, all right, I think August Monday, Monday's fine with me, the 31st. Monday, August 31st.
Unless there's somewhere you gotta be or something, then we can change it.
I'd have to check my social schedule.
Okay, all right. Then I guess we'll go with, Monday, August 31st. Do we have a motion to accept the meeting schedule?
Oh, yeah, I motion that we change the meeting schedule for first meeting September to Monday, August 31st.
And the schedule for the year.
And the schedule for the year, yes.
Support.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
As a sign of, I'll say yes. Yes.
From the same.
Council, folks,
Anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest shall do so now at the podium. State your name, address for the record. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Move on to mayor and council comments. Brett?
I know I've said this in the past, but could we put a number, figure of dollars down at the hydro to each of these units for, how much they're running, what's that profit now versus what it was?
Yeah. We don't have that in our previous accounting. We didn't separate out some of the details. We're going to develop that to try and get some of those figures. We're gonna have to go back in. So I was hoping that during the budget cycle in this winter, that we'd be able to. I didn't forget about your request, it's just, it's an exercise, just based on, we haven't done that. So. The other one that you had asked, just so we're still thinking about it, is the cost. There was a generation cost that we're saving. Like with Unit 1 putting out 3.2 megawatt versus 2.8. There's obviously a value there that we want our customers to know that by that efficiency that we put in place,
Yeah, and I think that's, well, when it comes to budget, it'll help for preventative maintenance to know exactly.
That's
what
part of that
cost
study we
is.
talked about, I brought up a little bit last week, I think. Brett, I think we definitely do need to commission a study at some point, once the repairs are done, to figure out where the sweet spot is down there, as we talked about. What's our ROI, what's our maintenance versus our And it's a changing environment right now, because green energy is worth more than, energy that's not green, I guess, for lack of a better, term. So we definitely have to, I agree with you, we definitely have to get our arms around that and figure out what's best for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Absolutely.
Brett, did you have anything else?
I do not.
Jeff?
I want to thank your husband, Tim, for a great tour on, speaking of the hydro plant, great tour on this Tuesday. It was very informative. I would also like to talk a little bit about what we're thinking we're going to do with snow removal, as far as, we're going to have to contract some folks to get some of the snow out of town here. What's the plan?
Okay, so we've had a number of complaints come through. Obviously, we've been hit hard here in a 2-week cycle, and this is something that typically we don't see for another month or so to have all the snowbanks. But along US 2 and along US 8, we need to submit to MDOT. That's MDOT jurisdiction. So we need to submit to MDOT in order to remove those snowbanks, because they pay us actually, because it's their snow. It's off the highway. But we just can't go out and do it, so we have to get their approval. So I talked with Dave earlier today. He was in the process of getting a hold of their maintenance supervisor and getting that approval. And as soon as we get that, we'll be out. What we typically do is we go in with the loader, and we typically get the intersection of the corners and get that snow out, and then we come down and try and get the in-between.
Can the county come and help with the snow removal off the US 2?
Yeah, the county is tied up with their own, they're all over the county, and so what they do is, with the cities, if they're not doing anything, yes, they could come in and help, but typically, they're doing snow removal at the same time we are, so they're out getting areas that they don't have a city. So like Iron Mountain, Kingsford, Norway, we handle those areas, they get paid for it, but we handle them, and then the road commission handles out in other areas.
Who's running our heavy equipment now with Chucky down?
Well, it's Dave and Brian.
Dave and Brian.
Dave and Brian, yeah. Rick can also handle some of the heavy equipment, but he's working on the equipment, so.
One other thing, cable TV or cable television, you guys, I'm an HBO person, I get HBO, since we had it in town. It's something called HBO Go, where everything's on your mobile device now, right? You just have to be able to log in through your provider. And of course, since we're not an actual provider, since we buy our signal, our people are losing a lot of benefits there. I mean, you can get TV on your phone, your laptop, anywhere you go, just by being able to log in through your cable television service provider, right? Well, we go through Packerland, right, for most of it, right?
Yeah.
So I would like to have one of the guys talk to Packerland about that, because it's a big deal. I mean, you can watch this anywhere you're at. It's on-demand TV. You can watch reruns. You can watch a game somewhere when you're you're out and about. You can
And
do it.
it's not Packerland anymore, it's Astria.
It's Astria
They
now?
changed, yeah.
Okay. I've been gone almost 10 years now, so, long story short, and it's free. It comes with your subscription. People have to pay for this. Yet, you can't get it in town because we're not a registered, we don't have that log information, we're not a registered provider. So I'm wondering if we can investigate to that to see if we can get our people that same benefit.
We've actually looked into that in the past, to see if it was something that we wanted to push forward. One of the reasons we were doing that is, there's a number of them, ESPN is one of them.
Big Ten Network, you name it, they all got it.
You see it, and you get snowbirds, they go down south, I mean, we keep them as a customer, because
Exactly.
they can carry it with them. It's kind of like the dish.
Exactly.
Where they take the dish with them.
Exactly.
So, there was a cost to it, though, for the cable company, and so, that was something we need to evaluate that this winter as we go through and look at our whole cable,
Yeah.
contracts that are coming up again.
Good.
So,
Good.
yeah, so I'm familiar with that. We'll keep it out there.
Thank you.
Lee?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the city crew. They did a good job on the snow removal and the plowing, especially being 2 men short. Ray, how's the prep work coming on our ice rink? Hopefully we can have
Yeah,
it for the holidays.
They're hitting it pretty good today. We will have it open for December 23rd, which I believe is the first day of the break, but
Yeah.
actually, that's a Monday, so let's say that we're pushed to have it opened at Friday, the 20th.
That sounds
Saturday, the
about
21st.
right, yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah, and I'd like a special thank you to the Tinty Law Firm for having such a nice float in our little parade there on the 6th, and Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus, of course. There were a lot of people, weather was respectable, the fireworks was great once again. And a little comment here, on the 5 boards that we have where we're asking for applicants, technically, we only had 1 new applicant, and I'd like to congratulate her. The other one, I think, was kind of appointed to the school person. And if you don't like any decisions that these committees make, I always agree with what they say. They can come to the council and say, hey, this is what we want, this is what we like, and I'll always agree with them, because they're the ones that did all the groundwork on it. And if you don't like the decisions they make, don't come to me, because you've had your chance already to say. Okay, and then, better note here. What is it? Oh, Merry Christmas to everybody, be safe over the holidays.
I have, just a couple of them were already, touched on. Look at a date sometime in January, can we do that? To, just revisit the budget and, have a quick meeting and overlook the budget. I don't know if everybody wants to wait till the holidays are over, obviously, and so will you keep that in mind for January? And
yeah, I planned on, especially, following up with this SAW report, I think the sewer fund, we need to address that first, because that's the one fund that needs regular attention.
What are we doing with snow removal right now, budget?
Well,
It just started.
It just started, and what happens
And
with
does it have to
this?
snow on the weekend every time?
It always does.
Every time.
Always does. No, I'll just comment about that a little bit, because I've heard about the overtime issues. First of all, guys are tired of overtime. There's nobody driving for overtime, they're tired of overtime. So that's not in play. But what I can tell you is that when you look at the percentage of the budget and what's taken up in that budget for overtime, it's less than 7%. I mean, really, the number, when you look at it from a dollar standpoint, it isn't that large. It looks large when you think about it, because it's always snowing on Saturday and Sunday, okay? But really, when it comes down to dollars and cents, it's not something that has put us over the edge. The other thing is that what happens is the way we budget is that if we end up with a big snow year, then our DPW budget's down, because the guys are either working in DPW or they're working in streets, because they're 2 different funds. So if we have a light snow year, then our DPW budget's up.
Okay.
So it offsets one and the other. So it's, it's tough on the road funds, and we have to take some of that general fund monies and help offset that. But then in a couple of years, we have snow monies that come from MDOT, that maybe, it usually takes a year, I think it's about a year to lag. So we're gonna get last year's snow money this year.
Oh, that's
And then,
nice one.
yeah,
I got a question.
it'll be up a little bit.
I got a question, it just occurred to me. All this salt and sand that the county puts on US 2, that winds up in White Creek over there.
Or if it's
Doesn't it?
combined in our sewer system. There's a couple of combined areas up here, especially along the US, the Main Street and then up to Brown, that section.
Because that creek is getting filled up with sand, and I'm assuming it's coming from the highway.
Yeah.
And if that's their
And our
sand...
streets- our streets go
They
in
should
there, too.
clean that too. They should pay for cleaning that. Just a suggestion.
Good luck getting that.
Duly noted. I'll write it down.
I also want to thank our city crews, being down, everybody's trying to help out. I hear that, the other departments, whatever they can do are helping out. So, I'm just asking the citizens, please be patient with the snow removal. We're trying to do the best we can, and we got to get to the priority roads first, and, the alleys and stuff later on. I also want to thank the peoples for serving on all the boards. It's time consuming, I appreciate it. A lot of time goes into all these boards, and I'm glad we do have people who want to be on them. Want to thank the fire department and the DDA. I think they did a nice job on our Christmas parade. It's always nice to see that. The fireworks were beautiful. And Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everybody. Ray?
I don't have anything else.
God.
Grant?
Merry Christmas and please be safe.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Mary, do you have anything to say? Trish, do you have anything to say?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Please, I support it.
Meeting adjourned.